Hello, everyone. I was so excited to see everyone's responses to my video on how to make ghee. Ghee is one of my favorite Ayurvedic foods, so I was thrilled to see that there were so many questions and such engagement over the topic. Today, I wanted to take some time to actually answer some of your questions, so let's begin. Many of you asked about infusing ghee with your favorite herbs, such as rosemary or thyme, or I could imagine sage would be extremely tasty. Now, let's first talk about the purpose of ghee in Ayurveda. Ghee is both a culinary food as well as a medicine. So when we talk about infusing ghee with herbs such as rosemary, thyme, or sage, we're really looking at it from a food perspective. Now, from a food perspective, I think this would be delicious. It's not something that I have personally done, although now that the question was raised, I'm actually intrigued about doing it myself. But the way I think would be the best approach to infusing homemade ghee with your favorite herbs is to first make the ghee and then separate the oil from the milk solids, and then go ahead and put the herbs while the ghee is still liquid, and then allow the herbs to stay in the ghee and allow them to just kind of infuse into the ghee as it slowly solidifies. Now, this is the approach I would take, but perhaps you give it a try and you find even a better way to make sure that those flavors really come out into the ghee. Whoever decides to do this, I would love to hear from you and let us know how it turned out. Tree Lover asked about adding triphala to ghee. First of all, I love that name, Tree Lover, and from one tree lover to another, I'm happy to answer your question. When we add herbs like triphala into ghee, we're actually turning it into a medicine. It's a particular type of herbal preparations in Ayurveda that are called grithams. Grithams are herbalized ghee. Now, grithams have tremendous medicinal value, but the process in preparing them is a little more complex than what I showed in this video in the preparation of ghee for home use. When we prepare grithams, we actually combine the herbs with some water into the ghee, and then we extract the herb into the ghee by boiling off the water and then removing the powder. It's a bit involved. It's something that I wouldn't necessarily recommend everyone take on unless you are really, really interested in creating your own grithams, because there are some techniques to make sure that it's prepared properly and there's not any water remaining in the ghee so that it doesn't go rancid. My recommendation here is simply to add a little bit of ghee to your triphala when you take it. Now, the advantage of adding ghee to triphala is it tends to further reduce vata. And vata imbalance is a very, very common imbalance in our modern world. And ghee is a fantastic remedy. So instead of going through the entire process of creating your own homemade gritham, just simply add a little bit of hot water to the triphala and then maybe just a quarter teaspoon or a half a teaspoon of ghee, and take your triphala that way. Much, much simpler. And it's a great question. Our next question is it okay to eat ghee every day? I cook almost every single day except when traveling and the occasional family day where my son gets to decide what we eat. And whenever I'm cooking with ghee. So yes, you can eat ghee every day. The question, though, is how much ghee should you be eating, even if you're cooking with it on a daily basis? The answer to this question depends on your dosha. The different doshas can tolerate ghee in different amounts. Now, vata dosha typically tolerates it the most because vata tends to be dry and ghee is very unctuous and helps to soothe vata. For people with a pitta imbalance, they can have moderate amounts of ghee, but if you're predominantly kapha or you currently have a kapha imbalance, then just use small amounts of ghee. Ghee influences the doshas in general in a balancing way, but if you have too much ghee and you have a kapha physiology, then it can simply aggravate that. Or if you're currently dealing with a kapha imbalance, then too much ghee will simply boost that extra kapha in your body. Now for vata, again, we want that. And for pitta also, we want that. We want that extra boost. So yes, you can have it every day. The amount depends on your individual dosha. Our next question is, when is the best time to eat ghee? Now, this partly depends on whether you're using ghee as a food or as a medicine. When you're using it as a food, you can pretty much cook with it all throughout the day. Only caution is as it gets later on in the day, we get closer to kapha hour, you don't want to add too much ghee to your food, again, because it boosts kapha. But if you're using it as a medicine, then it's a little different. We'll prescribe ghee at different times of the day depending on what we're trying to treat. So for the average person, you can use ghee pretty much in your cooking all day long with a little bit of caution near the end of the day, simply so we don't add too much kapha to the physiology. But if you're being prescribed ghee, then those recommendations may change, where you may be prescribed particular time in the morning or in the afternoon or even in the evening. Sometimes we do specifically give ghee in the evening to boost kapha. Great example of this is for people who are suffering from insomnia. We'll give a little bit of ghee and some warm milk and sometimes a few other spices. And we'll have the patients drink that right before bedtime because this helps to reduce the vata, reduce the pitta, and boost the kapha and actually help people fall asleep. So in that case, we're giving it as a medical recommendation and we're recommending it at a particular time of the day. Our next question is whether it's better to use ghee in cooking versus using raw ghee. Again, this depends. Are you using it as a food or as a medicine? If you're using it as a food, then of course, ghee helps digestion, and that's why it's one of the best oils to be using in your cooking. It is wonderful for the mucosal lining in your gut, and so it really helps to absorb the nutrients from the food. When we prescribe ghee raw, we're using ghee as a medicine. And so when we use it raw, again, there'll be particular times of the days. And oftentimes when we use ghee raw, we'll add it to either specific herbs or even another food like honey or milk. So when we're using ghee raw, it's from the perspective of wanting to create a desired outcome in the individual to help balance a particular dosha. And our final question is, should you eat ghee on an empty stomach? Again, this depends. It depends on, are you looking at ghee as a medicine or as a food? Now, ghee is oftentimes prescribed on an empty stomach as part of an Ayurvedic therapeutic plan. In fact, there's a particular treatment in panchakarma where you take increasing amounts of ghee early in the morning, sometimes up to 2 to 2.5 cups of ghee, and that's prescribed for a very specific outcome. Now, I do not recommend that you do that therapy at home. That's something that should only be done under the supervision of an Ayurvedic practitioner. So we do recommend ghee on an empty stomach in larger amounts, typically in panchakarma, but it's used as a medical therapy. Now, when you're using ghee on your own, I recommend simply cooking with it. That's the easiest way to incorporate ghee into your diet. And if your Ayurvedic practitioner recommends, you can add ghee to a particular herb. Or if you're taking triphala and you notice that you have still excess vata, you can add a little bit of ghee into your triphala powder. That's no problem. But once you get into eating it on an empty stomach or eating larger amounts, now you're really diving into more of the therapeutic aspects of ghee. And I'd simply recommend getting the advice of an Ayurvedic health practitioner to help you through that process. These have all been fantastic questions. And whenever I see this kind of interest on a video from time to time, I'll jump in and answer your questions via video so that we can continue to engage in these amazing topics on how Ayurveda is still relevant to our life today. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Dr. Kulreet Chaudhary wishing you health and happiness.